On the debt ceiling is Republican Congressman Bryan Steil of Wisconsin. It's good to see you, Congressman. Thank you for joining us. Based on what we learned today, and I realize it's not a lot, you're probably about to tell us a lot more than we already know. The players, at least, have been identified here for the next meeting. Do you think that we could actually see a deal by the end of this week?
I'm optimistic that we're at least finally making progress. You got to remember Speaker McCarthy and President Biden sat down in February, and finally we're getting to the stage of the game where they're going to meet again and substantively negotiate. President Biden put his head in the sand for far too long, a dangerous and reckless play. Now's the time to negotiate, and hopefully the president's really willing to come to the table and negotiate to save taxpayers' money, grow the economy, and limit our government spending.
Well, the indications are that that is going to happen. He has instructed, we understand, staff to meet daily to discuss outstanding issues. He wants to return to the leadership conversation when he gets back from his trip overseas. But, Congressman, there is a question of what ultimately the president can get on board with, or maybe more largely the Democratic Party. We were just speaking with your colleague in the House, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, a Democrat, who said she would not vote for work requirements on entitlements. Is that a deal breaker for your Republican colleagues? Can we come in the middle on this?
Work requirements for childless, able-bodied adults is an 80-20 issue. It was actually put to voters in my home state of Wisconsin. 80% of people in the state of Wisconsin, or across the country, I think, would agree that childless, able-bodied adults should be required to work or at least do community service for 20 hours a week in order to obtain benefits. These are pro-growth, common-sense initiatives. Everything that passed in the Republican plan to limit, grow, and save is net popular. Why? Because it's common-sense reforms.
The president wants to draw the line, it seems, somewhere on this, Congressman. I just wonder if we can put a finer point on that. If he draws the line at Medicaid, for instance, if that's a deal breaker for you, or how far you want to go when it comes to work requirements. Is it the number of hours that will help you to a yes vote?
Well, the Republicans, we put forward our plan and said, let's make sure for these able-bodied, childless adults that they're coming to the table with 20 hours a week to receive benefits. This is the point of the negotiation, though. Let's have the president come to the table and show us what he's willing to actually do to save taxpayers' money. At a minimum, can we at least claw back COVID funds that are unspent from the COVID relief that came through? The president has yet to put forward his plan for what he would like to do to save taxpayers' money.
Well, as we talk about saving money, there is also the revenue question. We were just hearing from the president himself moments ago, who said that GOP leaders haven't been willing to talk raising revenue. Congressman, why not, if ultimately the goal is deficit reduction?
We unwound a whole host of tax credits that the president put through that were benefiting some of the largest corporations in the country, with lots of those tax benefits ending up in corporations in China. There is big opportunity here to get rid of some of the crony capitalism that we saw pass in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act by the Democrats. Republicans, we've put our cards on the table. We have shown a reasonable and responsible plan to lift the debt ceiling. Again, the president is willing to demagogue, but not willing to show his cards of what he's willing to do to really save taxpayers' money and grow the economy, to get us out of the mess that we continue to find ourselves in.
That sounds like a no on raising revenue, Congressman, but I do wonder, at a certain point, there's going to be a deal, whether it's this week, at least we like to hope, or next. Then comes the hard part, and that's getting the Republican caucus on board in the House. How much risk is Speaker McCarthy at here? How much risk is he facing following a fraught process in winning the gavel to begin with, and a lot of promises that were made, some of which we may not know about going into this debt ceiling debate? Is he at risk of losing his speakership over this?
The Republicans of the House are incredibly unified behind Speaker McCarthy. He's done a great job leading the way, putting forward a plan that brought all of us together to put a plan before the President of the United States. When we put that plan forward, we said this is our spot to begin the negotiations with the president. What the president did is put his head in the sand in a dangerous and reckless maneuver. I think all of us are well aware that at the end of the day, we're going to have to negotiate to get a deal that helps taxpayers and also raises the debt ceiling. I think that at the end of the day, we're going to see a lot of people cheering on Speaker McCarthy when this deal gets done.
But of course, it all does come back down to the clock, because there is limited time for these negotiations to take place. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, in a new letter to Congress yesterday, reiterated it could be as early as June 1st, warned of the consequences of even just getting too close to the potential X date. Do you buy the Treasury's timetable, Congressman?
Well, only the Secretary of the Treasury can set forward the timetable. What I'm concerned, I don't think we're hearing enough about, is the ramifications that the market may have in the lead up to the X date. If we go back and remember in 2011, S&P downgraded U.S. debt 14 days out. That would be about next week on this current timeline. So my concern is that Wall Street will begin to react to this sooner rather than later. All the more important that we get a deal done as quickly as possible.
You've got some important hearings this week on Capitol Hill that we're covering, and the Financial Services Committee in the House also enjoying this opportunity to spend some time with not only our regulators, but former executives from SVB and Signature Banks. Congressman, I wonder where your head is on this now that some time has passed. We have not seen any additional banks fail. Does Congress have a role to play here, or is this kind of a sounding board this week for the banks?
I think it's really an opportunity to explore what went wrong, and in particular, were the regulators asleep at the switch. There's many that are calling for additional tools in the toolkit for the regulators, in other words, more regulation. But before we reach that conclusion, I think it's really important we get to the core answer of what went wrong. And I think the missing piece here is the fast increase in inflation rates and the fact that the Fed removed their rates so high so quickly.
But Congressman, as you talk about what went wrong, inherently that is backwards looking. I wonder, as you look forward, how concerned you are about the stability of mid-sized banks, whether or not we could see more failures going forward.
Well, as I talk to the broader folks in the financial market, I think we continue to believe our banks are well capitalized. What we want to make sure is that our regulators are viewing this in a dynamic model that we're in right now with incredibly high inflation and interest rates, maybe not on a historical trend, but in particular as it's been over the last 20 years. And so I think what's so essential here is that we're making sure that our regulators are not asleep at the switch, that we're protecting people, in particular those that have deposits at some of these banks.
All right, Congressman, I will be seeing you at that Financial Services Committee hearing tomorrow. But thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. That's Congressman